morning, friends of the media. Thank you for coming to the press briefing. The Chief Executive will say a few words and then she'll take questions from the floor. Now can I invite the Chief Executive to speak? Friends of the media, members of the public, since the 11th of April, the number of new confirmed cases in Hong Kong has remained at a low single-digit level on 4 days, and for 2 days in a row since the day before yesterday, there's been 0 confirmed cases. And as a result, many have suggested the government should review the strict control to fight the epidemic. That makes sense because for every strict control measure, there's a price to be paid by the community in terms of the economy, people's livelihood, or day-to-day activities of the public and so on, because there's much convenience and much impact on the people. So we do have to pay a price for such measures. And there are 2 broad categories of measures taken by the government. First, to have control of entry and exit. So through our various boundary control points, we are restricting entry to Hong Kong because in recent weeks, most of the new confirmed cases were imported cases. So that's why we have taken strict measures there. The second category of strict measures is to maintain social distance. And we are most grateful to everyone in Hong Kong, in particular, for those affected, in the business arena. So we're grateful to them for the support. Now, for all these measures, for these measures, there is a time limit because we are dealing with a major public health crisis, and the crisis cannot last forever. That's why there is a time limit for these control measures. So we need to take a gradual approach in reviewing these measures to see whether they should continue, and then we'll make a decision. And after we make a decision, of course, we'll announce it as soon as possible. Now, in this series of strict measures, having listened to the advice of the experts, they are called the suppress and lift strategy. That means if the epidemic is serious, then we will suppress. And you've seen that our strategy has worked successfully. So we're now able to suppress the number of new confirmed cases. But then when the epidemic stabilizes, then we need to lift. Otherwise, as I said, the day-to-day activities and businesses will be seriously affected. So how can we make sure the suppress and lift strategy works properly in the light of circumstances? As I said, we base it on science and evidence. But then, of course, for this suppress and lift strategy cannot be an exact science because there are so many factors to consider. You might note that a few days ago, I published a report on the fight against the epidemic over 3 months, and I said that it's like a tug of war among 3 parties. Now, there are 3 factors. The first is public health considerations, and what could we do to protect the health of the public in the best manner. And secondly, the economic impact on different sectors as a result of these measures. Third factor is that how the people are affected, because if people cannot engage in normal social activities and they cannot go out for entertainment, of course, it's tough for them. But then, Hong Kong, compared to many other foreign countries affected by the virus, is doing much better in that sense because we have not locked down the city, and we have not, banned people to leave their home. A few days ago, I was watching a news report about Western European country. A few young children were allowed to go back onto the street after they stayed home for 6 weeks. And I see how those children were so excited. It really struck me. That is, if you're stuck at home for a prolonged period, you cannot leave your home, you cannot even go to the park or engage in social activities. Of course, it's really tough. But then for Hong Kong, over the past 3 months, we have tried to to help the public to engage in limited activities at least. And I must stress that there could the epidemic may not be entirely stable yet, as that's what WHO said a few days ago. So we must remain highly vigilant. And so that's why we cannot just relax the two categories of measures that I mentioned in one go. We have to do it gradually. And when we relax these measures, then the need arises, we may have to tighten them again. Well, maybe until a vaccine has been developed and then most people become immune to the disease, then maybe then we could breathe a sigh of relief. Now, then the next expiry date for some of the control measures is the 7th of May. That includes the measure to impose a mandatory home quarantine for arrivals from mainland for 14 days. That's a 599C. And then under Cap 599E, eating establishments and other business premises have been subjected to certain control. And then Cap 599G, there's a ban on group gathering of more than 4 people. Now, for these various measures, they will expire on the 7th of May. I'm afraid I'm not able to announce our decision today, but we hope to do so very soon, so affected businesses and the general public would learn about it. I know there's been much discussion in the community. Of course, as we consider the experts' advice, we will also be listening to views of different sectors in the community. But then there are certain control measures that are not affected by the controlled by the law, and that is the resumption of work for civil servants. Since the 29th of January, we have adopted special work arrangements for civil servants on a number of occasions. Again, it's a case of suppress and lift, depending on the development of the epidemic. But then recently we have been gradually providing normal services. Now, for civil servants who work from home, that means they don't have to go back to the office at all for a whole week. For example, there are few of them who are working entirely from home, about 4,800, so about 1/3 of all civil servants. But then there are about 20% of civil servants who work on alternate days to reduce the number of people in the office, also to help to reduce the commuting crowd. Now, the government has reviewed the situation. We are making this decision that is starting from the 4th of May, next Monday. There will be 2 phases for us to resume normal work. The first phase that will come into effect on the 4th of May. There will be these arrangements. Firstly, the bulk majority of civil servants will, government employees have to go back to work unless for certain organizations that have been closed, such as government schools or some performing venues of the Leisure and Cultural Service Department, because the performing venues are still closed. So for government employees involved, they cannot really resume work as normal. Otherwise, all other government employees must resume work as normal. And secondly, for all public services, the operating hours must resume. That is, all sorts of counter services and inquiry desk services. As I said, we've been slowly resuming some of the services, but perhaps, say, for counter services, they are only provided, say, 3 days in a week, or maybe the operating hours have been shortened. But then starting from next week, in the first phase of resumption of normal work, all such counter services must resume normal. And then the third aspect is for facilities to be enjoyed by the public. Now, without reaching the gathering ban, these venues must be open to the public, and that includes outdoor. I stress outdoor sports grounds, libraries, museums, and so on. The fourth aspect, for all committees, they could now call meetings, but therefore major events such as celebration activities or award presentation ceremonies, they must still be suspended. And then many of the group gathering events must also be cancelled. Now, with these measures, it's not because we are relaxing our prevention measures against the epidemic, but rather because we have now probably more commuting, so and more people going in and out of government offices, so we need stringent control measures. For example, body temperature check before entering a building, the wearing of masks, the use of hand sanitizers, and then there could be flexible working hours. So if people go to work late, then they must of course finish work later. And then there could be flexible lunch hours, so everyone doesn't have to go to lunch at the same time. And then we could make good use of technology such as more video conferencing. Now, for the second phase, that is when can we fully resume all services, including the reopening of all the closed venues? Well, we'll have to make an announcement later because we need to monitor the development of the epidemic. And if there are other stringent control measures, if once they are relaxed, we have to see what the effect would be before we could consider the next step. So that's all I'd like to say. Let's see if there are questions.